Okay. So we're a bunch of WordPress developers. This is what we do all day for a living. We get paid to do this by people. It's crazy talk, but it's a lot of fun. And sometimes. Okay, well, if you ask my clients, I don't really get paid, but I need a bouncer for clients. The way this morning's going to work is going to be much more low-key than usual. It's going to be much more open forum. We want to do just mainly Q&A of anything WordPress or web-related you guys can think of. And then if we get bored of that, we'll just do like a roundtable. We have a few other topics we wanted to discuss over time, group projects, what the next few meetups are going to look like, things like that. This is my way of not having to plan 2 meetups in a 10-day period, so this is very helpful. And if we end up having anything that it would be better to display on the projector, we'll do that after the break. I'll set up the projector, but I figure right now. So how about we do a quick introduction in case anyone doesn't know us?
I'm not on this.
So this is Lisa Malgary. She doesn't want to talk to you, so...
My name's Adam Susi. I'm a WordPress developer over at HighForged here downtown.
I'm David Latta. I own a company called Orange Blossom Media, and you may have seen me around here before.
My name is Jeff DeWitt. I work with Adam at HighForge, and I'm the developer lead there.
I'm James Tryon, and I'm creative director of WP Valet, and I also am easily amused as well.
That far. All right. Just to clarify, he means that he is easily amused. If you wave something shiny, you'll distract him. So, while he's answering questions, please.
Just see what happens.
Yeah. All right, and we have a ton of stuff that we're giving away, including something fancy and secret. Ooh. So please feel free to take buttons and stuff. Not while we're talking here, because that might be weird. Does anyone have any questions to start us off? Anything WordPress related? Swami. Okay, so the question is, should you use WordPress.com versus WordPress.org, and should you have a single site or use multi-site? Okay. Who wants to take the first part?
We addressed this at the last meetup as well. Kind of the difference between .com versus .org. The first question I'm going to ask is, what is your site about? Are you doing anything other than blogging? .org. That's kind of the general answer. If you are running a blog and that's all you're going to do, .com is a great solution for you. You can get your custom domain name and all of that stuff. You're a little bit limited as far as your themes because I know it's a little bit kind of iffy on how the theming and the customization works. But .org, if you're going to do anything other than blogging, you're going to want to because of all the customization you're going to need to do. Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely going to want to use .org for that. And as far as as far as multi-site versus single site, I guess the question is, you can probably get away with multi-site, but actually, Jeff, you've got a little bit of experience with multi-site. What do you think?
How focused is your content? Then I would probably split it up, depending on how connected the content and the topics are. Yeah, then I would consider moving that to a different website.
I'll give a quick example of when I make the decision to use single sites, like multiple single WordPress installs versus multi-site. First off, if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, there's a feature in WordPress where you can use something called multi-site. It means that you can have multiple websites sharing one WordPress database, one set of plugins, one set of themes. So you can make all of your updates in one place and they go across all your sites. And that sounds awesome, right? But that's not always what you want because different sites have different needs. So I have my... okay. So I have my personal website where I'm just like, blogging, and then I have the business website. Those are 2 separate installs for me because they serve 2 totally different purposes. They have 2 different completely sets of plugins and themes and everything being used. The times I would use multi-site is we did a website for a restaurant last year that had multiple locations, and each location of that restaurant kind of just had like an informational page and things like that, but they still wanted to have their own URL. So it's like, restaurant of I can't even remember the city. It was near Cleveland, so it was like little boroughs of Cleveland. They had different domains for each of them, but the website still looked almost exactly the same. They used the same theme. They used all the same plugins, and they want to update it in one place. The kind of thing, if it's almost identical content, but it's only small things you're changing, that's when I'd use multi-site. The only other times I would think to use multi-site is if you want to have two separate functions that are completely tied to one another. So, for instance, david.com and then store.david.com, and I want my users to be able to register on my site to do whatever, but I also want them to be able to use that registration on the store website so they don't have to log in twice.
Multi-language. Forgot. Multi-language is another great option for that. We've got a couple clients that their sites are in both English and Spanish, so we use multi-site for the main domain hosts the English language version. Then they click a button at the top, and it's actually just a multi-site installation for the Spanish version. That way, all the plugins are controlled the same way. No, you'd actually have separate domains for each site. Yeah, and that's also in part for SEO purposes. That way, not everything's all pointing back to one thing, because it'll be a lot harder for Google to figure out what you're really doing if you've got all these things all funneling into one spot.
A couple of things on the multi-site. I would avoid it unless you absolutely have to. You should answer yourself, why do I need this, over and over again to make sure it's the best choice for you. The server load's expensive. Once you start going, you're going to have to get better hosting. So it's actually easier to run single WordPress instances than it would be if you got heavy traffic sites running a multi-site. In the future, splitting those apart, if you happen to sell one of those entities or if you want to grow, it becomes a pain. I would say the first half of this year, most of our work was just undoing multi-site for clients. It was a lot of money to do that for 3 or 4 sites. And it's, I'm not saying don't do it. Multi-site's great for the examples they gave, but you have to really need it. Just to do it because you think it's going to save you time will actually end up costing you money and take more time in the long run. So I would try to avoid it unless you absolutely have to. Another use case is like, let's say you wanted to sell niche sites and you run you want to run a lawyer-based website that you can sell small lawyer sites to. Well, every one of those sites underneath that multi-site are going to be using the same plugins, a version of the same type of theme, and then it makes sense because you're selling a product that is a single blog or a single site. Selling it, just trying to run your business off of it would take more time. So, maintenance-wise, checking it, being able to stand up a staging server once you start growing that becomes difficult, and it's almost too much. So I would try to avoid it unless you absolutely needed it. And I'm not saying don't, because it's a great tool, but you want to make sure it really fits those requirements, and is it really worth it? Because it can be expensive to undo that later. I'll start. I think she's asking what does Google think about like duplicate content on a multi-site or just in general?
Yeah, it starts with a domain. You get your domain, but then you have a different area that is shared content multi-site.
Well, I will say I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I will say Google's getting smarter, and certain things can be repeatable. If Google knows that you have a blog list and you're showing your blog list a couple times, that's okay. Showing the About Us page and it's the same content on every page, that's probably not okay. So it's Google tends to know what you're listing, so certain things fit, and you don't have to worry about that. Other things might become an issue, but I'll let someone else that knows more about SEO talk about that than me.
Why, yes.
I knew they'd get me eventually. So the way that Google handles duplicate content, as James said, yes, they are getting smarter. It used to be how if you had a blog roll, which would show your last 5 or so posts, and it would have a little snippet of each blog, and then on the actual blog entry page, it would start out with that snippet again. Google used to penalize you for that because it would see your blog roll page and see, one paragraph and then the identical paragraph starting off that listing. No longer. Google wised up and they realized that that's a common thing. That's not duplicate content. It's just kind of a preview of that content. So they no longer penalize you for that. However, if you are, now I don't 100% understand multi-site, so I might get this wrong. Feel free to correct me. But if you have a multi-site and your content is duplicated on different URLs, so if you're not davidlietta.com and if your other multi-site is under, can you do that with a different URL? Okay. Then you might run into a problem, because if you have a paragraph on the WordPress Orlando meetup on davidlietta.com and you host a multi-site with lisameliori.com and you duplicate the content over to that is still, in Google's eyes, duplicate content, because you're using two different domains right there. Of course, when you go to like multi-language sites, you're not going to have that because they're going to be translated. So in that case, you can say the exact same thing, but because it's in a different language, Google won't care about that.
So it was not a question that was asked, but we pointed out one of the nice things about multi-site is the ability to only maintain one set of plugins, one set of themes, and be able to make those updates. So what if you want to do that kind of thing without using multi-site? You still want to be able to manage all of your plugins and themes and websites and everything from one place. There are a lot of tools out there that allow you to do that. And so I'm going to give a few examples, but the main reason I'm saying this is I know a lot of people who have heard, oh, multi-site lets you share all these things. I'm going to do that for all my different sites. That way I only have to update them in one place. It'll be more trouble than it's worth. If you have interest in upgrading all of your sites at once or multiple sites at once, there are tools such as Manage WP, WP Remote, and my favorite, iThemes Sync. That's from iThemes.com. These are all tools that will allow you to control all of the installs for multiple websites without having to actually link those websites together. So you can update all your plugins at once or do a security fix all at once.
Are all those free plugins?
Right. No, not all of those plugins are free. iThemes Sync, I believe, gives you 10 for free. I think Manage WP gives you... Okay, I may be way behind. When I last used it, I believe it was 5 for free. So they may or may not have changed. And honestly, I have no idea how much WP Remote does. They give you a certain number of sites and a certain number of types of changes for free. But if you want to have one place to keep backups, to make updates, do all those things, they're highly worth it.
We don't use any of those. We actually use a different system called Infinite WP, which is another great one. I can't remember if it's free or not. I think it is. Yeah, it's a free service. So it does your backups for you. Although it places them kind of within the Infinite WP system, so if you need to get the backups, you still have to be able to go in and FTP into all that. So it's a little bit, but I think you do need a server to install it on. Is kind of the difference. So you basically you set up a server where all of your stuff is going to go, and that's where it'll live. But it lets you do all your backups, restore everything from one interface, and you can. It gives you kind of a little when you log into it. It gives you a little window where you can then open the admin of any site that you're on while still keeping the rest of your sites in a sidebar on the left-hand side. So if you go, oh, wait, I need to go check something on this one, you just go and click that. It's great if you're managing multiple sites, which is pretty much what we use it for.
Right, so like everything else in the WordPress world, a free version exists, and what you're paying for, if you pay for the other ones, is the convenience and the not needing technical skills. All right. Next question. On a roll. On fire. Yeah. Security. Number one security thing. Write this down like 5 times. Update, update, update. Update, update. That's
Wait.
the num...
Backup, update, backup, update.
Yes.
Backup, update,
That too.
Backup, update.
But the very first things that you should be thinking about in terms of security are making sure that you are...
Repeat the question.
Oh. The question is security. I think there are more words to it. What are the best security plugins?
Not just what are your Nazi-esque tactics for making people back up their sites.
Do it now!
Anyone have any good security plugin recommendations?
I don't know if there's actually a plugin for this, but most hosts will have it, which is Security. Well, they'll run it on the actual server for you. If they don't, it's like $14 a month or something, and I would recommend that. It's a server-level security system, so if you don't have direct access to your server, that might be an issue. But I know WP Engine runs it. A lot of the main companies, any of the Pagely, Pressable, they all run it on their servers, and it scans for malware, virus attacks, DDoS attacks, any type of vulnerabilities. They run on the server scans for you on their end. I have no idea. Don't ask me how to spell it.
I forgot I'm asking James to spell things. Sucuri. Sucuri.
I think there might be like 2 C's in the middle.
No, don't confuse it. One C. Sucuri. They're actually based out of Miami. So, yay, Florida.
Not so much a plugin, but pretty much what I can tell you. I was listening to the radio as I came in today, and apparently now instead of Snapchat servers getting hacked, people using Snapchat third-party apps, that's how they're getting hacked. The point is, don't think that any single plugin is going to solve your problem. There is a very realistic possibility that you're going to get hacked. It's just the way the world works now. Because if you give someone an infinite amount of time to accomplish a task, they will eventually figure it out. So the big thing is just making sure that like you're using things like SSL encryption. If you're taking sensitive data, like basically anything other than a person's name and email address, have your site set up with an SSL certificate. And actually now Google likes that. They actually will rank your site higher if you have SSL. So that's definitely something to consider. It is a little bit more of a cost, but not much, and it's definitely worth it. So just accept the fact that the possibility will always exist no matter what, because you think about if people keep recommending a plugin and we say use this one, all we're doing is painting a giant target on that plugin for hackers to figure out how to do it. Because I think 3 of the 4 of us are Apple developers. I'd say this guy bucks the trend. And you still use Windows for some reason. Yeah. So, but the thing is, Apple's long-standing thing was you don't get viruses on an Apple. Do you know why you don't get viruses on an Apple? Because they have a 10% market share. It's nobody. The hackers don't care because if I'm going to write software that's going to steal people's information, am I going to go after the 90% market or the 10% market? And especially the running joke is that 10%, they don't have jobs because they're all artists. That's the running joke. So you're going to go after the businesses that run Windows machines that are known to be less secure. So that's why you think about it. It's going to paint a target. So anytime we're like, use this, it's probably start looking for other options as well. So as soon as there is a problem, you can switch fast.
I actually have something to add, and I might get yelled at for this. I don't know if it's a good thing to do or not, but we had a client who was constantly getting their logins hacked for their site. And one of the fixes that I employed was to change their login URL. How many of you, when you go to log into your site, it's /wp-admin? Yeah, pretty much all of you, because that's the default, right? You know you can change that. It's probably a good idea, because anybody who wants to hack your site, that's the first thing they're going to try. So, if you... Okay, you can yell at me about that? Yell at me about that. Why is that bad?
It will stop some people.
It basically doesn't matter. And the reason is because WP-admin is actually just a shorthand redirect. So as soon as you type it in, it automatically redirects it to wp-login.php. So, and that's the hard-coded one that you have to use that. So any hacker that's worth their salt is going to automatically just go straight to wp-login.php.
It might still save you if you just have a really jealous enemy who's trying to piss you off.
Yes, it will work against individual people. Another common thing that I hear is don't use admin as your username. And that is a thing that will work if it's a human person trying to get into your account. They're like, okay, well, at least I have a username that I can start with. Did you know that you can go to mysite.com/?author=1, and whatever author name is going to be there is going to be returned to you. And you can see however many users are on the account, what their names are, anything like that. Same thing as those redirects. It's a very thin veneer of security that doesn't do much. I believe it was right. Okay, so redirects. Is referring to like if I go to David.com and it redirects me to evilsite.com or whatever. So that is not something, your WordPress, since that's the front-facing part of your site, that's absolutely somewhere that you should keep locked down and secure. But it'd be much easier for someone to make that kind of change if they were able to get server access. So other things would go into effect. 2 days ago, a new bash security, flaw was discovered. This was an SSH fingerprint thing. It's stuff that like I can repeat what it says, but it's still way up here. So we let someone really smart handle all those problems. Well, your hoster company does because they own the servers. But right, we're on the internet. Exactly, hacks are just a way of life. OS X had several core security bugs that had been unpatched for over a decade, simply because there weren't enough people really paying it. I mean, same as with the Bash one. 27 years before that problem was found. The guy who wrote that code, I read an interview with him recently. He says, he was like, yeah, it was one misplaced keystroke by probably me and not one of the other people 27 years ago. All that time without a bug, I still feel pretty good about my software. Or before one is found. I believe Alan Turing came up with the maxim that anyone is smart enough to create a security protocol that they can't break, but no one is smart enough to create a security protocol that somebody else can't break. Whatever you do, somebody's going to find something. Oh yeah, if you want to jump in, you will. But I will say, I could probably really quickly pull up websites like on Mechanical Turk or something, where you can hire someone, in Bangladesh, India, other countries to go through CAPTCHAs for you, like every second or two.
The WordPress codex has a lot of that, because there's a lot of you can still hit me, and I don't mind. He asked about code resources for security in plugins and themes. Is that right? Development, yes. So the WordPress codex has a lot of that information. I do not have the URL. A checklist. Probably.
There's not a specific checklist other than what David's whispering in my ears, the code standards, which are also on the codex. Basically, you look at the WordPress coding standards. If you follow the basic rules, and it's something I'm going to be talking a lot more about if you start coming to these meetings. If you follow the basic rules of the standards, you're already in very good shape. And one of those basic rules is, you've already said it, is you're sanitizing your input. That alone does so much, because any of those little funky things that people try to inject into your site, you've already taken care of that. So,
sanitizing and escaping?
Yeah, sure. Basically, what sanitizing and escaping input does is you've got let's say you've got a form field on your site, and sometimes because you think, oh, like all I have is a contact form, and that's handled by a plugin. Obviously, they're doing it. Not necessarily true. Unless you're using Gravity Forms, and you're good. And if you're not using Gravity Forms, why? It's worth the cost, trust me. But usually what you're going to deal with is actually in your themes. It's the stuff that's on the back end. You think, oh well, I don't have to worry about this because nobody's going to get in the back end of my site. Wrong. As we've just been talking about, it's a lot easier to get into somebody's site than it is necessarily on the server. So somebody gets into your site and they're like, this is how I'm going to basically blow everything up. They can inject code, whether that's MySQL calls, just any sort of, even some JavaScript hacks, things like that. It's a laundry list of things that they could potentially throw into just one random form field. Whether that's, it doesn't need to be like a big text box. It can be a tiny little field that you think is only for name. If it's under like the 255 characters that it accepts, they'll still find a way to make it work. So that's why you always want to escape your input. And what that means is it strips out anything that's not basic text. So like literally just letters and numbers. And yeah, sure.
Real quick, who in here would consider themselves a developer? Who builds websites for their clients or writes plugins, anything? Okay, so we have like 5 or 6. You guys are like, I know there's coffee back there.
It's okay. You
so,
can admit being a developer. It's
right.
cool.
Okay, so
That's why we're here.
So what Adam's referring to doesn't only apply to forms. It applies to anything that allows people, that any way that information gets passed between the server and the browser on your site. Anything that can write to the database, anything that can send code to another page, any other query strings. Basically, what we're referring to is just whenever anyone can put stuff on your site, make sure you neuter whatever that is. So in the WordPress Codex or in the coding standards, there are actually plugins that are built in, or not, sorry, plugins, functions, PHP functions built into WordPress that allow you to strip text depending on what kind you want. There's one called Escape HTML, which will strip out all HTML. Escape URL, which will strip out any URLs. They're actually ESC underscore, but /strip that'll remove any extra trailing spaces or any trailing slashes. To clarify, don't always run away screaming. After you're done running away screaming, send an email to... No, before you give it a bad review, well before that point, send an email to the developer.
Yes.
There are 35,000 different plugins in the repository. That means that there are thousands, probably tens of thousands of developers out there. Varying skill levels, they just might not know.
Yeah, there's a, 1 second, and I'll answer your question next. There's a plugin called, I believe it's called the Theme Checker or something. It's the one they use on the theme review teams. It's Theme Check that'll actually run over your theme to make sure you have everything you need. Make sure all the proper things are there. Now, it might not check your PHP properly, but it's going to check all your things, all your files. We've been looking into a new text editor called PHP Storm. It's like $200. It's a little expensive. But the nice thing about it is if you load in your entire site, it highlights all deprecated functions in WordPress. So it knows what WordPress is, and it knows your code's wrong or old or dangerous, and it'll help you and make suggestions to fix that. So we're trying to get our whole team to move over to that because of that reason, because it'll check on deprecated code. Yeah, I have not fully integrated with it yet, and it's a little frustrating, but once I know our developers love it. Once they get on it, they think it's great.
I think it also lets you step through PHP code.
It does.
Which is a huge help when you're it's called PHP Storm. Actually, I think one of the developers at WordCamp last year talked about. He did a whole talk on PHP debugging, and he mentioned it. That's why he mentioned it a year ago, and I still haven't gotten it. But basically, what it does is, if you're a developer, it lets you step through code, so that way you can find like that one tiny semicolon that you may have missed, or that misplaced period that's throwing everything off. It'll save you a lot of time. So it's definitely worth the investment if you are a developer, or if you're considering to be a developer. Sorry, repeating the question. Sorry, Lisa. Is there how do you check to see if the plugins that you're using, are they properly sanitizing at input? The first thing to check is the reviews. Go and check, because if you see in 3 versions ago they had a major security flaw. If people are still complaining about it, that's not a good sign. The other thing is honestly to just pay attention on Twitter, because that stuff gets spread pretty quick. And usually, the plugin developers, if it is something that was a genuine mistake, they'll own up to it. Good developers will own up to their mistakes and say, hey, I screwed up, please update, I've already fixed it, you're good to go. The ones that don't, those are the ones that when I say, like David's saying, if you find something, let's say, you're not a developer now, but you decide you're feeling adventurous, and in your dashboard you open up one of the plugin files just to take a look through it. And you notice that, hey, this is an input field and it's not being sanitized. You send an email to the developer. They don't respond. They never say anything. It's been 3 months and it's never been addressed. Those are the people you run away screaming from, because those people did that on purpose. Actually, that's a very good idea. Basically, if any plugin that you use, especially one that uses stuff in the backend, because almost everybody's going to be at least smart enough to sanitize their stuff that's on the front end of your site. If you're in the backend, and if you've got the time, you really want to go through and check this, start throwing things in that like actual HTML code, and when you hit save, see what happens. Because if it saves it exactly as you put it in, that's usually a sign that something's up. Unless it's designed, like if it says like, hey, input your HTML here, like even WordPress has a function. I didn't even know you could do this. I think it's called the editor, wasn't it? A function is literally WP editor, and all it does is pops up that same editor window. So there you can obviously input HTML, but you can't put in PHP. So throw in a few lines of PHP, see what happens. And if it still saves it, that's a problem.
The question is, do you have some type of standard or guidance when things are added to the repo? And I would say the themes are all reviewed. There's a theme review team, so every theme is safe that's in the repo. Might not look the best, you might not want to run your business off of it, but it's not going to cause you damage. The plugins, there's too many of them. So there's not a theme, there's not a plugin review team. Now, it's not as intense as the theme that I'm a...
It's there, but they don't ensure that everything is 100% perfect.
Yeah.
So they openly say, we do miss stuff.
And they do strip plugins out. So on a weekly basis, they're meeting in IRC, and then every time someone submits something, they will pull it from the repo. If it's a security problem, they will drop it and let the author fix it and stand it back up. But if it's blatantly trying to rip someone off, they'll pull them, and they'll pull all their stuff. So it's not 100%, but it is better than it used to be, and there is people out there, but you don't want to be the first one that gets caught that brings it up to their attention. So.
Yeah, the plugin review team for .org, the two leads for that team both have jobs that are not for WordPress. So, I mean, understandably, they don't have quite enough time to devote to that. But they do some basic checks on it. You can do a lot of these checks automated. There's the theme check plugin that you can download, and then there's also the plugin check plugin that you can download. It's kind of meta. You install a plugin to tell you which one of your plugins are terrible. But it won't catch it won't catch things like, well, this just doesn't work, period, it's broken. And it won't catch all of the ways that there are security issues just because it doesn't have the ability to understand that there are security issues. It might think that it's supposed to function that way. All these different things that we're saying are wrong. There is a time and a place for them, but the majority of the time, not.
And then there's one other thing. You can start, like, if you want to become a developer, Tom McFarlane has a plugin that's a plugin. It's a plugin framework that lets you get started, and there's already stubbed out the functions in there to sanitize your URLs and stuff. So if you want to be a developer, start with a framework like Tom McFarlane's plugin template framework.
It's called Plugin Boilerplate. It's on GitHub. I guarantee if I came in here next month and brought it up on the screen, we could probably all write a plugin together, having not done code before. It makes it so much easier. So the question is, what if I start building my blog on a different platform that's not WordPress, and I'd like to transfer it over to WordPress? So first, I'm going to flip that question so I can sing the praises of WordPress, which is WordPress I've found to be amazing at being cross-platform. There are so many ways built into WordPress that you can export your data out of it. Plus, there are tools that people build to export your data specifically to other systems. I found that some other content management platforms don't allow you to do that. Proprietary platforms generally don't allow you to do that because that's the whole reason that they can keep you as a customer. Literally, they will own your data. So if you want to be able to take your data anywhere, WordPress is really good at that because it doesn't assume ownership of the data. It kind of like makes it so easy. Oh yeah, you want this post? Here, take it. You want the whole thing? Take it. You want it in this format? Well, that's weird, but okay, here. It's really good at that. So the reverse has to hold true. Whatever service that you're coming from has to give you some good export feature. So if you're going to, let's say, a hosted platform that you can't even access a back end, you either have to talk to some developers at whatever platform that is, or you're kind of out of luck. If you're coming from, say, Drupal, Joomla, Blogger, Tumblr, a lot of the big ones, they also have realized that the openness is a good selling feature. So if they haven't built official support for it, then there will be plugins out there to do it.
Sorry. If inside of the WordPress admin, there's like this list of options from sources where you could import your content from. And then either it'll install a plugin to help you with that, or it'll just take it from whatever the source is. So there's already some import functionality built in. That's it.
Any more on that before we...
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say on that. I mean, you're the product on Facebook, so it's, yeah, you can hire someone to help scrape that data off for you. but not really. It's what I do. What I do though is when I post to Facebook, I post from my site first, and then it posts to Facebook for me. So that's how it's getting double posted. But it's not. I don't know how anybody would go back the other way that I'm aware of right now.
Really, what you're talking about, you're saying like not individual posts on Facebook. You're talking about like in the tab sections on the different pages. Yeah. The answer to that is interns. Interns. Hmm? There might be, yeah, what Jeff is saying is there might be an API, but Facebook's developer API is kind of complicated, and it may not necessarily, I don't even know what languages, I think it's Ruby, maybe?
No, they're still on PHP.
Oh, they're on PHP? Oh,
Yeah.
nice, okay.
They invented HTML for that.
That's right. Yeah, so because it is in PHP, it may be a little bit easier to work with, and I dare to say maybe that's an idea for a plugin, how to pull content from a Facebook page to WordPress and import it, but yeah. But the other thing I just wanted to point out, we know Ryan because Ryan works with us over at HighForge. It's a great question, and actually it's something we're dealing with it right now with one of our clients. One of our clients, for whatever reason, he has his business website, and then he has a blog that is not on his website, and I don't understand why. But he wanted a link to his blog, but he wanted it to like still seem like you were still on the site. So what we did was we took the RSS feed from his actual blog and hooked into it and outputted all of that so it looks like blog articles on the actual like blog page on his site. And then when you click the read more button, it takes you directly to that article on his other site. The only downside is when you do something like that, you're at the mercy of whatever the RSS feed gives you, because the strategist on our project, his first question was, "Hey, can we add the images from the blog to the blog listing on the blog page?" And I said, "I'd love to, but I can't because it's literally not in the RSS feed. It's just text. It isn't even like a link to that image." So we're kind of stuck there. But there are options, and it depends on the platform. So, but like David said, use WordPress. One of us.
I do believe that Facebook was legally pushed to add an export feature at the same time that they added the delete feature. For the first 5 years or so on Facebook, you actually couldn't delete your account, and some people were very angry about that and brought lawsuits up. I do believe that the feature exists to get your content out of it. I can't remember what format it would put it into, but if anyone here can tell me where to find the delete button, it's probably hidden as deep as that is. But I don't know if it's on the same page. The point was that like it's not, I don't see it on a regular basis.
The question is like Wordpress fit in the same line as security? I would say having a on-site backup and off-site backup is important. Wordpress does nightly off-site backups. I believe they actually do hourly off-site backups as well. Progressive, and then after 30 days, they purge the old ones and they keep you on 1 month basis. So I would always recommend a backup. I would always recommend a nightly backup on your server and a nightly backup that's off your server. So I would definitely recommend Wordpress or BuddyPress. I mean, not BuddyPress, Backup Buddy. Or there's even like, if depending on the server you're on, there's a plugin that I used to use when I'm not on WP Engine. It's called WP-DB-Backup, and that will send you a nightly email scheduled when it is. Now, granted, that's an email, and it's your entire database attached in a backup, and if your email gets hacked, all your data's there. But for your basic e-commerce, or basic brochure site, that's going to do you justice, and it's free, and you'll have it every night. That plugin will not work on managed WordPress hosting, but if you have cheaper hosting or your own host, it's called WordPress. It's called WP-DB-Backup. DB, like backup, but it's WP-DB-Backup.
Another free backup plugin that I've had great success with is WP Backup to Dropbox. It does exactly what it says, and if you have a free Dropbox account plus a free plugin, then you use as much space as you can manage there on your free account. I want to quickly clarify though, VaultPress and Securi serve two separate purposes. VaultPress does have some security on it to scan your backups for you, but it doesn't do active security management. It won't tell you this is a threat that exists on your site. At best, it will say this is too corrupted. We're not letting you use this backup. We're deleting it.
One last thing regarding VaultPress, we provide it for all of our clients, but it does not back up elements that are not WordPress related. So if you happen to have a wiki, an open source wiki in a subfolder called wiki, it will not back that up. But if it's a WordPress thing, a WordPress plugin, WordPress standard, it will.
I think for the moment we'll take a break. I didn't realize we've been talking for a whole hour.